D.C. made a damning and unequivocal statement about their priorities for our country, and Lansing Republicans are rubber stamping and co-opting all of this in the state of Michigan. Lansing Republicans are making it clear that everyone in our state is just a political pawn, and they are ready to trample over everyone just to get massive tax breaks for their wealthiest of friends. And the fact that we keep doing unserious legislation in this chamber in the Michigan House day after day is just to distract us from the real issues that are facing our state. And these aren't just votes we are taking, these are deliberate choices that are being made. To shutter rural hospitals, to fire public school teachers and nurses, and to let classrooms go hungry in classrooms that are already too crowded. Let's be clear here, Republicans are choosing to do this. This is a choice, this is self-inflicted damage. Now, if you live in rural Michigan, they just voted to take away your clinic, forcing you to drive hours to see a doctor. If you live in Detroit, they just voted to pack more kids into our schools, into those classrooms. And if you're raising a family on a tight budget, they just told you that they don't care about you. They want your life to be harder while making it easier for President Trump and his billionaire buddies and putting it on the backs of working Michiganders. Now, we are left at a crossroads here and a choice for what the future of our state should be. And what House Democrats are offering is a vision to invest in our kids, a vision to invest in our teachers, and a vision to invest in our schools, our hospitals, our healthcare staff, our infrastructure, and our state of Michigan. Or you have the Republican vision, which is to take things away, take away our freedoms, to close schools, to fire teachers, to fire nurses, and to close hospitals. Why do Republicans want hospitals to close? I think that's the question that we want an answer to. And here's the scariest part. Speaker Hall's budget here in Michigan that we saw a few months ago is a carbon copy. Massive cuts to education, a 25%, $5 billion cut to education spending, cuts to infrastructure spending, cuts to programs working families rely on just to get by. He is not negotiating, he is mimicking President Trump. But Mr. Speaker, I have news for you. Lansing isn't D.C. The Speaker is not Donald Trump. And we as a caucus are not taking it, right? I know the Speaker enjoys joining President Trump on stage and getting his social media views and doing spots with reporters. But the reality is that there's a lot of damage headed our way. These tariffs that are happening, this economic uncertainty, this failed trade war, the cuts from Medicaid spending, the cuts to SNAP benefits are going to create job loss and just a tremendous amount of destruction to our state of Michigan, and the Speaker has remained silent. I think that's something that we've never said this term, that the Speaker has remained silent, but he's remained silent about this. And so why is he so scared to tackle real issues? Why is he so scared to tell his best buddy, President Trump, that, hey, maybe the way you're doing stuff in D.C. isn't working for Michigan? You see, because when you have tariffs in a heavy trade state in which we border an international trade partner in Canada, which an auto industry that's reliant on that, and a agriculture industry that is reliant on foreign trade, why can't you tell your buddy that, hey, maybe those things might be popular in places like Oklahoma and Alabama, but they're certainly not popular in Michigan? And so if you can take the credit and join stage when times are good, why can't you use that proximity to actually stand up for the people of Michigan? These things, like I said, are disproportionately going to affect Michigan, and there's a whole host of things that we do want to talk about and things that we could actually be doing to protect Michiganders.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Leader. You know, we saw again today more of the theater that I know people love to watch and read about, but really distract from the major issues that our state is facing. We continue to see stunts about bringing bills up to fail. We see stunts about bringing forward the Gulf of America bill that then never comes to fruition. We see time and attention wasted and directed away from real issues that are facing Michigan families. I don't go home and hear about these bills. I go home and I hear about pocketbook issues that continue to erode people's savings accounts, concerned with how they're going to save money for their children's education, for the grocery bill next week. And there is going to be more of that as I enter Memorial Day weekend, where families are coming to me and saying, I am concerned with what I'm reading about in every national newspaper, and what's happening here in Lansing is not uplifting them. I don't see that what we are doing here in Lansing is filling their cup and making sure that their families are whole and well fed and with stability. I don't see that occurring. You know, I think that what we did today was dangerous, having a bill pass out of this House that does erode civil rights. That's dangerous. And it's to a group of people who may not have the same position and the same awareness in this chamber as others. But what happens to the next group? That's a question I posed in committee. I'm still waiting on an answer as to what happens when we do it for this group of people, what happens to the next group of people. And I believe that there is a very common statement related to World War II where that is brought to fruition as well. And that rings in my head every time that we talk about these bills, that we are looking at the most vulnerable and disadvantaged in terms of their voice in places and halls of power and how they are being discriminated against. It is concerning, it is dangerous, and we do not see a cohesive legislative vision that will help to create a better, safer, and more prosperous Michigan evidenced today. Thank you.
Wow, you've heard a lot, but it's necessary that we're here on today. When I think about one of the last times we were here, we were talking about the culture of chaos that was coming out of DC, and we're seeing it repeated here in these halls here in Michigan. And now there's been a shift. We've gone from a culture of chaos to a culture of cruelty. It's cruel to do what they're proposing to do with these types of budget cuts, to affect the least of these, the impoverished, the disenfranchised. It's cruel to take food off of their table. That's cruel. It's cruel to take medicine away from people with mental health challenges, because what's been proposed, what passed out of the House in DC, what's already trying to happen here in Lansing under the Speaker, it's cruel. And when I think about the strides that we made, when I think about the progress that has been made, particularly around addressing mental health, people are getting their therapy, they're getting their medication, they're on there. We have all these programs because we used to just lock them up. We used to just increase the prison population opposed to helping people. But now, if we actually allow these cuts to take effect, then we're going to be looking at criminalizing folks who aren't criminals simply because they're sick. Mental health is health, just like physical health. And so these things really, really just bother me a lot because it's cruel. It's beyond comprehension to look at a mom who relies on SNAP benefits and seniors who rely on these things and say, yeah, we didn't take you into account. We took into account our billionaire, trillionaire buddies. We looked at their needs. What are their needs? They can afford insurance out of pocket. They don't even have budgets. Their bank accounts, whatever they want, they can just get. These are people living paycheck to paycheck, Social Security check to Social Security check, just trying to make it. And what we've seen in DC and what we're even seeing now says, you all don't mean a thing to us. We're going to do what we want to do. We're going to continue to follow the orders that come from on high, and we're going to try our best to meet those same things, those same desires here in Michigan. But we're just not going to take it sitting down, though we're sitting today. We're not going to take it. I'm used to standing at that point, but we're just not. We're just not, because the truth of the matter is people matter. The truth of the matter is we're here as representatives of everyday people. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to fight. We're going to continue to make certain people know what's happening here. And then we're going to continue to let them know what we're going to do about it, particularly under this great leadership of Leader Prairie here. So, Conley.
Yeah, I would echo what you've said, but I feel so sad. I went to sleep last night watching C-SPAN, knowing I was going to wake up this morning and that this House bill would have passed, and then had to be on a call at 10 o'clock this morning as a board member for the Michigan Center of Rural Health. And we're on that call where these are people who are desperately trying to help our most rural population who do not have access to health care. And we had to discuss the fact that things are going to get so much worse for them. $600 million probably in cuts in Medicare in the state of Michigan, 2.7 million people who will be not able to access health care with Medicaid. It was just the most depressing call, and on top of it, the hospitals and hospital providers on the call were saying it's also going to affect everybody, because when you don't have that Medicaid insurance coming in, guess what? The OBGYN hotline is going to close. They're going to close that psych hotline because they don't have enough people, because they don't have enough money. So people who think this is only affecting people who are on Medicaid are so wrong. This will affect everybody. This will even affect my mother, who lives with me, who's 91, because they were talking about how Medicare is also being affected. It looks like there's an increase, but there actually isn't an increase. And so you look at all of this, and then, as Chair Young said, our veterans population, taking away their health care. And then I was at a meeting last week, and I had to be sad again, because I had to say, guess what? The Republican House bill is taking away 92% of transportation funding, 95% of our general fund for state investments, and 25% of school funding. You don't even want to say these things out loud, and it feels like a horror film. You just can't even believe we're here. So we will be working very hard against these things, and to sit there today for an hour talking about a solution to a problem that isn't even a problem in Michigan was the most frustrating thing when we have these problems on the table. So what a waste of taxpayer dollars. What a waste of our time today to talk about an issue that's not even an issue. So let's get back to work.
Unserious people in power leads to dangerous consequences, and if we are not actually meeting the needs of the moment, of everything that is looming and coming to our state's way, it is going to be destructive to the future of this state. As House Democrats, the leadership team here stands united amongst our caucus of not engaging in political theater. That's not what we want to do. We want to be pragmatic and find a way to work, because as much as Matt Hall wants to scream into the abyss, what he says is not holy gospel. He cannot mathematically make public acts out of the Michigan House. The reality is we are in split government. If he wants things to become law, he needs things to truly be bipartisan and bicameral. He has not shown a propensity to want to do that or to negotiate in a real way, and which is why we have been led to becoming one of the most unproductive legislative bodies in the last 50 years in Michigan, because Speaker Hall refuses to negotiate. And so we're happy to take some questions about the serious work we can be doing in Michigan.
What is all of your reactions to the House resolution that passed today, and I guess just the Oversight Committee's handling in general of their conflict with Secretary Benson right now?
Well, it's from the moment that this has all started, this has just been purely partisan and just weaponization of government, right? All of us want to see secure elections. I think the Secretary of Office has submitted thousands of documents, but the reality is that some of those documents are going to contain very sensitive information that will put the security of our elections at risk. And so if we truly want to do this, let's do this the right way to making sure that our elections are truly secure. I know we've talked about this, and there's better ways to do this.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen now 2 days in a row a resolution pointing the finger at another, chamber of this legislature, and now also at the Secretary of State for what they believe to be a dereliction of duty. And I misunderstand the need for these resolutions, other than it gets everybody in the room and talking about these things, which, understand. Today, I pointed out, we do not need a resolution to initiate legal action if we so choose as the Michigan House against the Department of State. We don't need to do that today, and to then bring it forward for a roll call vote. It is intentionally divisive, And I think we did a great job today as a caucus for a resolution that got dropped in our laps 2 minutes before session. We did a great job yesterday understanding what these resolutions are intending to do. Yesterday, when we got that resolution 20 minutes into session, we are realizing in real time that there is going to be no expense spared, if you will, in terms of trying to divide this caucus, and we are standing unified. What came out of DC last night is a notice to the people of Michigan and of this country that we are going to need some resiliency and fortitude in these moments. And this caucus right here is ready to deliver that and model that.
I sit on that committee, and it's a mystery to me because all they've talked about is why can't we get these training documents? And then when we ask them, why do you need to see them? What are you interested in? We can't get an answer. So I don't even know what they're looking for. So thousands of documents have been given over, and we have no idea what they want to see. You know, how to make them happy is beyond, evident.
Yeah.
So it's a fishing expedition.
Rep. Cernig was also on the committee.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that was said. I mean, what we've seen throughout the hearings that there is progress being made to fulfilling this request. And as I said on the floor, a lot of the things they requested were actually already available online, so they could have been, found by the individuals requesting them. And this is a huge waste of taxpayer money. It's a huge waste of our Department of State's time that should be spent on other things that are certainly more pressing issues, because we don't know what value these documents may have to them. But with that being said, if the legislature requests documents, those requests should be fulfilled, and that's exactly what our Department of State is doing right now. The only documents that haven't been brought forth are those ones that have sensitive security information regarding the process of elections and what happens with the ballots. And we do need to preserve our election security and our election integrity. So they're going through those documents and removing any information that could be considered sensitive, secure information, and those documents are all in the process of being turned over. So, I mean, we heard the term political theater, and that's exactly, what this is. And you're probably going to keep hearing about it. I don't think this is the last time we'll hear it, and it just comes up over and over again because it makes good drama.
So pragmatism. Cuts are coming, cuts have been made, there have been cuts to Medicaid. Citizens Research Council had a report yesterday, there's an $800 million general fund gap between what the governor put forward for her budget and where things are at. How do you as lawmakers approach this? This is going to have effects on departments, administrative things, this budget that needs to be developed. What is the approach? Cuts are going to have to be made. What is the House Democratic vision for navigating this?
We want to preserve the work that we did. We had a successful budget done on time in the last 2 years in the Dem trifecta, in which we were able to invest in Michiganders. And we're seeing evidence of that in the results of the CREC. Although there was some bad news in CREC in terms of the economic softening of data, largely resulting from the policies from DC, we are seeing that people are, the EITC program is working. It is getting money into the hands of and the pockets of families that need it across the state. We're seeing the pension tax is working. And so we want to build on that. I think if we could start with the baseline budget and then figure out, how to meet the needs of the moment. I know that there is.
So will it be possible to preserve all that with the realities of the economic data we're looking at?
I don't know. I don't know. But I think we should look at what is working. We shouldn't be looking at everything through a partisan lens of just thinking that that's something that the Democrats did, so it's a bad idea, because the reality is that there's tangible evidence that those policies are working, and we should invest in the people of Michigan. Maybe we should stop handing out money and tax breaks to that are going to mostly benefit the wealthy, and figuring out ways to actually invest in the people, because the reality is if we just bury our heads in the sand and kind of rubber stamp everything that Trump is doing, we do see the devastation that's coming. And so why not Trump-proof our budget? Why not get ahead of those cuts and the Medicaid cuts that we know are coming? The question, again, I want to ask is, why do House Republicans want hospitals to close? Why do House Republicans want to fire teachers around the state this summer? I think there's a way to do that without having those things having to happen. Can we get everything done? Probably not, but that's what the purpose of negotiating and having discussions. But when you have someone who refuses to negotiate in goodwill, we're left with very, very poor decision making and a budget that's going to, again, cut 25% just off the top of the education budget, 92% of general spending, and bad decisions are going to be made. But if we can have honest discussions, then we can probably reach better solutions.
You mentioned earlier that this isn't the right way to handle the, I guess, conflict and the subpoena and the back and forth with the Secretary of State. So what does the right way look like, in your opinion? Like, what would that involve?
I think I can answer that. I mean, I think at this point, I mean, just, setting forth a timeline, with the Secretary of State, instead of demanding that everything be done on a specific date, is what I would say would be much more reasonable, so that they can be assured that they're going to get the records, but just having a reasonable timeline rather than maybe even asking what a reasonable timeline could be for getting those documents, rather than setting arbitrary dates for thousands of documents, because this is like a very, very vast request, and most of it has been fulfilled. It's a wide array of documents, and at first it was a little unclear what those documents even were in the beginning. Now I think it's definitely been made much more clear what they're waiting for, but just setting a timeline. I mean, there's also other means. I think these Rep. Fitzgerald might be able to speak to the other, you were talking about it earlier, means of acquiring those documents, but I just think they should set a timeline.
Well, even aside from reasonable timelines, how about reasonable expectations of what this is about? Whip Conlon mentioned, we have no clue where this fishing expedition is going. Do they know where this is going? Do they know what they want out of this? They are damaging the integrity of our elections. I didn't think that this was a partisan topic, but House Democrats stand united in making sure our elections are secure, making sure no one can impersonate being a clerk. So I think the question should be posed to those members of the majority party on oversight of what exactly it is that you want, so maybe we can work hand in hand to make sure questions are answered. But if this is purely just political theater and the weaponization of government, then we're probably never going to figure out a logical way to make that happen.
I don't know. I feel like it's pretty simple. She's running for an office. You all have not gotten any explanation as to why we're doing this, besides to lift her up negatively in the press. That's all I have to say about that.
Just one last point on that. We have seen, the effects of election denialism, and I think that a lot of this information is going to be used to feed on that theory, and go back to, just that dangerous place where we find people doubting our elections, and that's not somewhere we want to be right now. We need more election workers and more clerks, and there's just so much harassment and so many threats put to our election workers. There's no evidence of the types of things that they had suggested for the 2020 election, and it just continues to feed those conspiracy theories. So I think this is kind of an extension of that.
I'd just like to say too, this is a leadership team that has a lot of hope that we can change course and we can continue to do the good work necessary for the people of Michigan. We as a leadership team came in and said, we're going to be better 1 week from now than we are today. We're going to be better next month than we were this month. We're going to continue to build on that. We have that opportunity within ourselves and within this legislature to change course and continue to prioritize the people of this state. I have full belief that we can still accomplish that, but we need to have partners in that journey. We are clearly in the minority in this term, but that does not mean that we do not have the ability to come together, to work with our Senate counterparts, and have success for the people of Michigan, even in the face of difficult news last night out of DC and continued, I think, unwillingness to bring forward real solutions for our constituents.
What needs to happen for that to happen?
I would, I gotta tell you, I believe that what we need to see is a better understanding of what comes out of this chamber and how it's going to be received in the other chamber. When we have policies that are not having amendments discussed or debated, and having considerations that we believe reflect not only our constituents' needs, but every citizen of Michigan, when those are being disregarded and willfully neglected, and then that's sent out of the chamber, I don't believe that that is going to lend positive results. I don't think that that's where not only negotiation starts in this chamber, but within the legislature as a whole. And so I would really like to understand how and what format we, the majority party would like to have that discussion, because obviously within the boundaries of the floor and within this institution, it's currently not being embraced.
Ask the Republicans why they're not serious about a budget for Michiganders. They're the ones that have all the cards right now. Yeah.
Well, sure, but you're not powerless in something has to be done,
We're
and
not powerless, but we, who's in charge? It's Speaker Hall. He's not been serious about governance from day one. He's not been serious starting budget negotiations at zero. That's not a good faith negotiation. That's BS. So, ask us all the questions you want. We'll stand here for hours, but the real questions should go to Hull.
I think the plan is we fight back. That's the plan.
And we're also in our districts. So I know you guys cover Lansing and you see us up here, but each and every one of us has coffee hours. We have town halls. Those of us in Debbie Dingle's district try to compete and be everywhere like she is, but we hear from our constituents day in and day out. We help them with their state budget issues, their state issues. And you could go to Rep. Whitworth's district. She has coffee hours all the time and hears from her constituents. And we hear that here. And we know what people are really confused about and scared about. And unfortunately, we're not scared of our constituents the way that the Republicans are. They're not hearing from their real constituents. We are. And they're ignoring us. They're ignoring their constituents. They're ignoring our constituents. They're ignoring Michiganders.
I guess to echo Elena's question, though, how do you exercise power for the minority when it seems like Speaker Hall is exercising holding all the cards?
I don't think he is holding all the cards, right? Speaker Hall is not President Trump. Speaker Hall is not the Senate Majority Leader. Speaker Hall is not the governor. He's just the Speaker of the House. And when he looks in the mirror, if that hurts him to hear that, I think that's the problem of why things aren't moving and things aren't happening. Like I said, this has been the least productive legislature in what I've been told is 50 years. It's because of one man. When Speaker Hall realizes that he does not have the votes to make public acts and that he needs a plurality of Democratic votes to have any level of success, that is when things will begin to change. But if he wants to hold Michiganders hostage so he can score brownie points with Donald Trump and get on stage and go get the press clips and do the press conferences, then that's the game that Michigan's going to have to play. But the reality is that, like we've said time and time again, federal cuts are looming. 2.7 million Michiganders are at risk of losing health care. That means hospitals are going to close. So again, why do Republicans want hospitals to close? There's an easy way to fix it. Just negotiate with the partners and the cards that are available. And he just refuses to do that.
Do you have any other questions? Got time for one more.
I'd like to note that we didn't do anything today that will benefit all of Michigan. Right now, there are bills that are being held up that could help people. There are teachers who right now are paying $145 per pay period for their health insurance. Starting in September, those teachers are going to have a per pay period deduction of $324. So instead of paying $145 every other week, it's doubling. That's one of the bills that's being held up, and that is a bill that would make a real difference in teachers' lives, everyday Michiganders' lives.
And that's if we have a school aid budget and those teachers have a job.
Right.
The power that Speaker Hall has right now is to waste taxpayer time and money at a moment of urgency when we should be establishing a minimum standard for what Michiganders need in order to sustain. We're talking about food, we're talking about shelter, we're talking about health care, we're talking about basic care for our families. And that is what we need desperately to be working on right this moment. And Republicans have an opportunity to do that with us, but instead we come here day after day after day and accomplish almost nothing because it's their agenda. They have the power to shift their agenda to something that is meaningful, but also to something that is desperately needed for this moment.
So to that point, I guess, to all your projections, and it seems like things are on pace to crash, whether it's whether Medicaid or social services or anything else in between. And it seems like there's not really a lot happening right now that can be done until people change their minds with positions of power to, I guess, change their negotiation tactics. So for everyday people worried about, maybe schools closing, government shutdown, et cetera, whatever may happen down the line, what's the message to them? Is it just wait till it crashes and hope people see the light,
Or is there a way to get people to the negotiating table before it blows up in everyone else's face?
I think the public needs to put pressure on Speaker Hall. You saw us pass 2 budgets on time the last 2 years when Democrats had a trifecta. The Senate Majority Leader is the same person there. The governor is the same person in her seat. The budget director is still the same. There's only one piece of this puzzle that's different, and it's Matt Hall. So if a budget doesn't get passed on time, that's on Matt Hall. The public needs to hold Matt Hall and the appropriations chair accountable at their coffee hours, if they have them, at town halls, if they ever have them, at their offices, showing up to tell them that we need a damn budget on time, and it's their responsibility to come to the table in good faith. The governor put forward her budget, the Senate put forward their budget. The only budget we have here is one that eviscerates most of our government. So that's not a realistic option. So people need to hold them accountable. The press and the people need to hold leaders accountable when they're failing to show up and do their darn jobs.
But it's a pattern with the Republicans, let's not forget. They don't always show up to do their job.
Yeah,
Every single one.
we're all witnessing political theater, and it's the Matt Hall show. He's got a capable caucus of subcommittee chairs that want to work. If it's too hard for him to figure out himself, maybe he should start empowering some of his caucus members to do the job that they were elected to do. In my conversations, I know that a lot of his caucus members don't want things to be like this. Things don't have to be like this. I said this earlier. This is self-inflicted chaos. Right? We don't need to be doing this. We could have a budget done by July 1st. It's been done many times. And like Rep. Morgan just pointed out, the only piece that's changed is Matt Hall. And so if you want things to change, I think we've kind of identified the problem.
It's a choice they have to make, right? Like the issue they've got is they've got an element of their party that's super MAGA, right wing, and right now they've decided they want to be held hostage by that element in their party. They don't have to. They don't have to negotiate with those 10 or 12 people in their caucus that are making them put all this nonsense up on the board because they're running scared from that element of their electorate. They can come and negotiate with us at any time, and we can get a budget done. They just have to decide who they'd rather negotiate with. People who represent about 50% of the state collectively, or people who represent a tiny little portion of their party that they're all afraid of. And that's what it comes down to. We're all ready to negotiate and get a budget done. It's just who they want to negotiate with.